Welcome to another exciting episode of Ancient Anecdotes powered by Listen Cub. This is your host Ramanathan Iyer.
My name is Kamatri Kaliswaran and today I'm representing Kudam.
And this is Bharat Krishnan.
And this is Lalita Ramanathan. Appa, seriously, sit down here.
Yenappa, what happened?
This cliffhanger and all too much, okay? The old lady is covered with blood and crying, it seems. Nrupatunga is coming close to her and finding out, it seems. And the episode ended off. Anyayam, pa.
Papa, cliffhanger. It is called cliffhanger.
Chumma, the tension is too much. I've been biting the nails to find out. Po, pesa maata.
Adha pa solla porene. I am literally going to continue right now.
Okay, tell me quickly then.
In the last exciting episode of Ancient Anecdotes,
Oh God, recaps.
every day the prince would bathe in the Manimuttari river and come for washing the large temple elephants. The temple was well endowed, and so there were 11 elephants in all. And as the prince was to find out, they were not small innocent animals at all.
Gauri, no! This water has been continuously dripping on your head and it has caused this wound over time. Something as soft as water can harm someone as big as you? There is strength in softness. There is firmness in fluidity.
He saw an old woman fallen next to the twin Nandi near the southern entrance. She was holding the smaller Nandi and tugging at it, wailing in pain and breathing in loud, ragged breaths. She is 70-something. As he neared her, he saw that the woman's head was actually bathed in red. Was it vermilion? No, it was blood. She was bleeding. And now we continue.
Finally.
The lady looked fiercely at Nrupatunga. Something about her eyes told Nrupatunga that this was no ordinary poor woman. Her eyes were those of royalty, and her strength was that of at least 10 men. A single stream of blood oozed from her head over her eyelashes, down her cheek, and over her lips, and splashed recklessly onto Nrupatunga's face as her voice made Nrupatunga's heart squirm with helplessness.
Food? Medicine? At this stage of my life, I need only one thing that I can't find. As far as my eye can still see. Justice. I want justice.
Nrupatunga's voice seemed to have evaporated with surprise. He swallowed forcefully to wet his larynx and finally found his voice.
Why do you seek justice, Amma? What has befallen you? Who has wronged you?
The woman looked flippantly at Nrupatunga's clothes. She brought her face close to Nrupatunga's face and said with an unsettling mixture of anger and pain,
That is not a question for the keeper of elephants. It's a question for the king. If you really want to help me, stop talking and turn that smaller Upahara Nandi around to face the Arigara Nandi. Because I need to speak to a king.
Nrupatunga realized his place. He let go of her hand and went on his knees. He clasped the smaller Nandi with both his hands and tugged it in the opposite direction. It didn't move at first. Nrupatunga heard a familiar voice.
My king, remember the power of water. There is strength in softness. There is firmness in fluidity.
Nrupatunga used his soft martial art moves to coax the Nandi idol to move rather than push it or tug at it. And wonders of wonders, the smaller Nandi turned a full circle. A stream of water squirted from underneath the Nandi and covered Nrupatunga's knees and feet. Nrupatunga bent and touched the water and looked up to her with every bit of responsibility he could muster. But then something changed again. He could never understand why, but when he heard his own voice, it suddenly felt different. It boomed across the praharam of the temple as far as the ear could hear. He said aloud,
I am the one you are searching for, Amma. You stand before the Terkattuko Parakesari, Pallavan Nrupatunga Varman.
The lady's once flippant glance and pain suddenly evaporated as she looked at him with wonderment. He went on his knees again this time. He patted his head affectionately and said,
O king of the land, I was once the youngest Chora queen who was married to the great Dharmabala Choran, the king who built this very Vilvanallur temple. My name is Athirai. My king Dharmabalan is long dead, but today, Athirai never mourned for her husband since she knew he fell as a penalty for valor. But today I mourn for a king. Legend says that my lord Sokan Kameshwaran will send a king along even if a single subject of this kingdom is in need. Today, I'm happy. I'm alive to see this legend being proved.
What happened, O great mother? Why are you wounded? Who has wronged you? What help is needed?
My late husband Dharmabalan left me in charge of the port of Veerampattinam to care for the people there. I have protected them. I have protected the people there as long as I can remember. My body grows old and is not what it used to be. Today, after a long time, a pack of conniving wolves bay at the gates of Veerampattinam. The port and its people are under the attack and I can do nothing about it. Some strangers have come from across the seas. They are violently attacking the harbour workers over there, young children, men and women alike. Simple-minded men who only work for some money. Who will protect them if not their king? I went to their aid. But they are all heavily set warriors who carry heavy weapons. I was unceremoniously thrashed on my head with a mace. If help doesn't come within the hour, these people will soon perish.
Nrupatunga took his weapons from Sabapatiyar and took the Padayarani Athirai on his steed and galloped towards Veerampattinam without any further ado. Nrupatunga Varman rode into Veerampattinam like a streak of lightning. Before him, a whirlwind of chaos unfolded. Villagers and dock workers were under siege. Their attackers were tall, broad, powerful men menacingly brandishing strange foreign weapons that glinted ominously in the raging flames of the torches they carried. These warriors were clearly not from India. Their skin wasn't pale like the Huns or the Ming warriors from China, yet their eyes were thin and their armors were crafted with metals.
So, they are quite progressive in weaponry, but they have a primitive fighting style and haven't cultured their behavior.
Nrupatunga noted with a sad smile. Nrupatunga left Queen Athirai safely on the horse. With swift determination, he charged into the fray, his eyes locked onto a young boy besieged by brutal fist and flogged by wooden sticks. Instinct drove him forward, but the warriors were unyielding, their strength pushing him back with ease. Suddenly, danger loomed as one warrior lunged to stab him from behind. In that crucial moment, the old Queen Athirai acted with noble bravery. She took the blow intended for him. She collapsed into a heap on the floor. Falling, she caught Nrupatunga's gaze. Her words were a fading whisper filled with wisdom.
My king, I came to Vilvanallur, angry with Sokan, blind to his divine plan. I walked in furious with Sokan Kameshwaran, stubbornly demanding that he kept his word and protect Veerampattinam. When I saw you move the Upahara Nandi, I realized that promise was already fulfilled. He had guided me to you. When the water touched us, I knew Kamakshi Amma had already given me her son to protect my people. Sokan escorted me to my destiny. So, also, I have escorted you to yours. As my story ends, yours begins. Remember, there is strength in softness. Remember, like when you moved the Nandi, like when you worked with the elephants. Remember.
Her sacrifice ignited a fire within Nrupatunga. The king rose, her courage infusing his spirit. He faced the remaining warriors, carrying her lessons in his heart. He steadied himself, his mind reaching back to his training. In the heart of the turmoil, a familiar calm enveloped him. It was a whisper of ancient wisdom guiding his actions. Harmony in movement, power in yielding, and the soft strength of water. He let these teachings guide him. Nrupatunga shifted his stance. His movements turned fluid, each step a dance of precision. He weaved among his foes like a stream around stones. Every attack they launched met with graceful deflection. Their strength faltered against his agile flow. The northerners charged forward with a fury that seemed unstoppable. Their voices rang out in a harsh foreign tongue, grating and unfamiliar, each word bellowing like the roar of a wild beast. Towering figures, clad in heavy furs and iron, their weapons gleaming with menace, they moved like a storm. Axes swung in brutal arcs, hammers crashed with unrelenting force, and the spears thrust forward with deadly precisions. The air hummed with their raw power, their strength evident in every step. Among them, however, stood Nrupatungavarman Pallava, his frame slight and seemingly frail compared to the massive warriors before him. His movements were deliberate, slow, and serene, like the unfolding of a great natural force. His stance was that of a master poised in an ancient, slow style of Kalaripayattu, blending effortlessly with the energy of the battlefield. The mercenaries, expert in the hard, hammering, and piercing, brutal fighting style of the northern lands, had been trained to fight with the force of the earth itself, using their size and strength as their primary weapons. Their axes cleaved through the air like thunder, their hammers smashing with the intent to break bones, while their spears striking with an unyielding speed. Nrupatunga was suddenly awestruck as they all seemed like waterfalls and rapids to him. He could hear his heartbeat thud against his chest, and then a faint humming sound. Before he knew it, an ancient hymn filled his head. He had heard this hymn all his life, so it did not come as a surprise. The only thing that felt different now was that his being resonated with that hymn.
Vrittatrayam cha dharani sadanatrayam cha Shri Chakra Raja Udita Paradevataya.
While all this was happening inside his mind, outside, the rumble was in full flow. As the first mercenary lunged at him with a massive axe, Nrupatunga barely moved. He stood perfectly still, his eyes calm, his breath slow. In a fluid motion, he sidestepped, letting the axe swing past him harmlessly, then reached out with one hand to deflect the strike firmly. The mercenary stumbled, caught off guard. Before he could recover, Nrupatunga's other hand gently nudged him angularly towards another oncoming mercenary. The full force of the first warrior was directed at the second one. The onlookers gasped in disbelief. How could such a slight figure, almost fragile in appearance, hold his ground against these towering, muscle-bound titans? But it was not strength that Nrupatunga relied on. His mastery of the slow, deliberate movements of Kalaripayattu, honed from these days of working with the elephants, whose sheer weight could crush even the mightiest if not carefully managed, gave him the ability to direct the attacker's ferocity. When another mercenary swung his hammer with the speed of a falling mountain, Nrupatunga pivoted gracefully, guiding the blow further downward. The mercenary, now vulnerable, struggled to regain his balance, but it was too late. Before the axe hit the ground, Nrupatunga had already scooped the wrist of the unstable warrior and turned him around his axis twice. Because of the momentum from the twirls, the heavy warrior and the force of his swung axe intact were still light and pillow-like for Nrupatunga. From the corner of his eye, Nrupatunga saw the fourth warrior come forward, brandishing twin maces. He threatened Nrupatunga with a deadly double-hammer blow that could easily shatter even iron shields. Sidestepping with larger steps, Nrupatunga hurled the momentum of the twirling axemen into the path of the double maces. The mace-wielding warrior's anger and arrogant snarl vanished instantly as his irresistible force seemed to meet an immovable object. Without losing a second, Nrupatunga with a swift movement disarmed both the maceman and the axeman. As the hammer went spinning away, the dazed maceman felt his right hand quite empty for a brief moment. The next second, Nrupatunga had managed to throw the heavy axeman on the maceman, and they both lay sprawled and unconscious in a pile. Soon, Nrupatunga stood amidst defeated warriors, his movement as graceful as the wind. Even his clothes remained unruffled, his breathing steady, his expression unshaken. The crowd who had watched in awe could hardly believe what they had witnessed. A mere wisp of a man had deflected the raw force of brutal warriors, redirecting their lethal attacks to their own destruction. Silence followed the battlefield. A stillness settled, broken only by the villagers' applause. Relief washed over them like a gentle tide. In their faces, he saw newfound hope and gratitude. In the midst of cheers, Nrupatunga suddenly felt a warm presence, a familiar presence. With a sharp breath of exclamation, Nrupatunga looked around.
Nrupatunga?
Did he hear it? Yes, he did. And now again, that divine giggle, an ethereal echo, reminiscent of the temple, reminding him of his beloved Mother Divine. He looked around. Did he catch a glimpse of a young girl's face among the cheering villagers? He quickly got down and wove through the crowd, the giggle and the pitter-patter of her little feet still resonating like thunderclap in the rain in his ears. But she was nowhere to be found. He stood resignedly amidst the cheering masses, looking into the skies with tears in his eyes. As he stood among his people, understanding dawned. He was more than a king. He was a guardian, bound to his people by invisible threads, stronger than any regal duty. Embracing this path with humility, Nrupatunga Varman Pallavan vowed to remain at the side of his people. Granddad used to tell us that the Pallavan sold his horse and with that money built a humble smithy for making various tools for building the galleons and weapons and fasteners for the ships that were made at the port. Since the villagers kept insisting, Nrupatunga chose a life of service, teaching Kalaripayattu to the village youth. He shared the art of gentle strength, an enduring legacy from the Divine Mother. It was a gift, weaving balance and grace into the world.
Appa, wait. Why is the story ending here? This is so unfair. You do this every time.
What, Pa? What happened? You finally know why Nrupatunga went to Veerampattinam. That's all that matters, isn't it?
Not even close. Duh. Where is this place, Pa? I don't see Vilvanallur on the map at all.
You're right. Vilvanallur has changed to Villanur. Look in the map next to Pondicherry. See there? See down there? Villanur is a town located in the Union Territory of Puducherry in India. It is situated about 9 kilometers south of Pondicherry, which is basically Puducherry city.
Ah, I see it. Villiannur. But wait, I have another one for you, Pa. How did Mother Balambike know about the invaders so ahead of time? What was the need for the elephant seva days? Why should he do the elephant service before? Amma could have just taught him that Tai Chi like Kalari before itself without any torture to him, isn't it?
Papa, Balambika is timeless. She already told us so in the story, isn't it? She must also know that if the knowledge of slow Kalari was just taught to Nrupatunga Varman, he wouldn't understand the need or the situation to use the soft martial art, isn't it? The Pallavan needed an insurmountable vocation like herding elephants on whom brute strength would never work. Plus, we know Nrupatunga was hot-headed and restless to begin with. The service would calm his nerves. The villagers and their innocent pestering would teach him patience. He should use his strength, but then realize the futility of it as well. He should just give up on his physical prowess as a result. It was then that he would see the dripping ceiling in the elephant stable. Like Archimedes needed the tub for his buoyancy discovery, Vilvanallur was an essential part of the Pallavans' training.
Okay, fine. But tell me one thing. How in the world is all of this related to my craving for crunchies and eating them when it feels like eating them? I can't see that for the love of God.
Okay, now that's a fair question. Now you see, did you notice how we spoke about your cravings are basically sounds from your stomach when your bad bacteria are starved and demand sustenance?
Yes, Pa.
Nrupatunga heard the cries of his people and rushed to his rescue. He heard the bellows of the invaders and fought with them. Your body will also do this, but you need to practice awareness and the right form of kalari. The kalari of eating aware and reading labels before eating anything. Your spiritual practices will earn you your awareness. It is your kalari. And eating something that feeds the good bacteria instead is like finding an alternate crunchy, like carrots, or prebiotics like sweet potatoes, or raw bananas.
Oh. Okay, Pa, wait. And Balambikai Amma? What is the symbolism there?
Well, that's self-explanatory, isn't it? Have faith that the universe will always send up help because it is always watching you. That is the core symbolism behind the story.
What a lovely story, Pa. It is just so awesome to hear. Which part do you like the most, Bharat uncle?
Well, I love that a king can be so humble and do a mundane task of bathing an elephant. If he can rule a kingdom and also do a mundane task with equal enthusiasm, that is such a balanced state of mind to be in. I believe that he is able to do any task, big or small, to perfection only because he is looking at it as God's work. No work is small for him and he gives his best. Also, when the call comes, he is ready to leave whatever he is doing and take on responsibility for the larger good. So when the time comes, even the most daunting task doesn't deter him. He shows equal enthusiasm towards that as well, and most importantly, considers that also as God's work. This attitude of service, to be available, is what makes him a great king. In today's corporate world, young graduates and freshers who enter the industry often exhibit an urgency for high returns and don't focus on what is really expected of them. There is an undesirable lack of accountability as a result. I see this story teaching all these youngsters the importance of enthusiasm and accountability over returns and remuneration. And this, like I said in the beginning, is all about that balanced state of mind.
But Appa, what happens to Nrupatunga? As a result of being in Veerampattinam, did anything else happen?
Of course it happened, Pa. You remember the boy in Nrupatunga says first when he lands in Veerampattinam?
Yes, Pa.
You know what happened to him? Years later, that very boy, whose name is Maravan, becomes a strong and able-bodied helping hand on the port. Maravan travels along with various vessels to various ports around the world. The Pallava dynasty is well known to have done trade with China, Bali, Indonesia, Sumatra, and even countries in the Oceania archipelago. While the trade ship was once in China, Maravan and his mates were approached by a strange Chinese warrior, a warrior who had only a left hand. The Chinese warrior seemed to have lost his right hand. He was groggy and dizzy, but wonders of wonders, in such a state, someone would normally ask for food, isn't it? They would beg for food. But this man begged for someone to teach him martial arts. The man kept wandering inside the port, going from person to person, crying, "Please teach me your martial arts. Teach me how to fight. I need a teacher." Maravan's friends were also puzzled. So Maravan takes pity on the Chinese warrior and agrees to take him to Nrupatunga. This becomes the next exciting chapter of Nrupatungavarman's life. What happens to the Chinese warrior? Does Nrupatunga help? Does the Chinese warrior recognize Nrupatungavarman?
Yes, Pa. Does he? Does he?
Hear it first
On Ancient Anecdotes.
on your favorite podcast streaming providers.
Tune in for a brand new episode.